Hello, welcome to the second section of the Stonyhurst Microsoft Educator course. Last week we looked at blended learning and we worked out what that was and what the best strategies were. This week we're going to look at two tools, OneNote and PowerPoint. There are two separate videos this week, which will help us implement blended learning in our digital workspaces. As this is the June 2023 version, and we have some people who are coming to some in-person courses and some who are doing it online, and a mixture of those for some others. Here are the dates. A reminder that the last two sessions are just 1 hour long. So the plan for today is to explore how to make learning more powerful and dynamic by using Microsoft OneNote digital notebooks. So we'll look at how to use OneNote to compile and organize information, how to organize OneNote so that we can quickly find materials within the notebook, and to check that we know how to add content, to create sections and pages, and how to share pages and notebooks. So before we go any further, there's an activity for you. If you go to the Teams collaboration space in our Microsoft Educator notebook, if you're not doing this in June 2023 when I'm recording it, then you've probably got a slightly differently named team and therefore notebook. And answer the following question: what do you need or want from your digital tools? I suggest you pause the video now and take about 5 minutes to do that. Thank you very much for that. I hope that if you're doing this after everybody else has done it in person, that you have found it helpful to be able to read what other people have written. We're looking really, in terms of OneNote, at simplicity, creativity and efficiency. And in the Stonyhurst context, the simplicity comes from the fact that, and I know I say this almost as a mantra, that OneNote is just a folder, fundamentally. It's just a folder that the pupils can take with them at all times. They can take them home with them when they fly halfway across the world. They can remember to take them home when they're only going halfway across the Ribble Valley, and they can even have it when they are in the Moore Library doing studies and they have left it in the classroom or in their locker or in the playroom or in boarding. Actually, if it's on OneNote, they don't have to go and get it because they already have it with them. But there are some other features which make it even more powerful than a traditional folder. So collaboration is a key one there. And so we can rethink our resources, our workflow, our collaboration as we implement the pupil side of the curriculum through OneNote, because it has the capability to have a lot richer content. A lot of the things that had to be shown in class or happen only in an ephemeral way, such as giving your feedback verbally to a pupil, can now actually happen in their folder. So we just need to reconsider what it is from our schemes of work that we might like to implement in OneNote. And that's really the purpose of today, is to kind of think about how what we're already doing can be improved by using OneNote. So we're going to get to know OneNote almost from scratch in a way, but with an understanding that quite a lot of colleagues are already using it in a very advanced way, and also that we will all have at least some familiarity with it. So first of all, we should note that there are 3 different types of notebook. You can have a personal notebook, and I know a few people use these to store resources in before they then send it out to a team, or to take notes from a meeting in. If you go to your list of notebooks in OneNote, you will find that there is one with your name at Stonyhurst College. So mine is Andrew at Stonyhurst College. It might be, and I'm not sure why this is, but at the time I'm recording this in June 2023, a couple of people have had this issue. It might be that you have 2. I'm not quite sure why that is, but if you just close one, you'll be left with one, and you know which one everything's in. And that's for your own notes. You can move things from there into a class notebook, and that works well. But it's also a good place to, for example, take meeting notes that you then type up in a more comprehensive way. Then you've got the class notebooks, the ones we're most familiar with. The class notebooks are the ones that are connected to a team that is set up as a class. So each team can be set up in a number of different ways. It can be set up just as a team, in which case it doesn't come with a notebook. It can be set up as a class team, in which case it comes with a notebook and every member has their own folder. And you have the teacher only in the collaboration space and the content library and that sort of thing. Or it can be set up, and this is the third option, as a staff team. And in a staff team, you have a notebook, but everybody doesn't get their own. It's one team for you to collaborate on. And that's designed for collaboration with colleagues, and they're called PLC notebooks. They're probably not hugely in use. I think probably we're mostly for our departmental teams using just a straight team with no notebooks in. And there's no need to overcomplicate that unless you want to, but you can't convert a team from being one kind of team to another. So if you're making the leap, you're deciding to move everything from one team to the other. We just need to consider whether being able to use OneNote in your staff team is worth that hassle. So here's a challenging question. Why are we using OneNote rather than physical folders? So what's on the screen now is kind of the official Microsoft answer. Versatility, multimodality, collaboration, and anytime, anywhere access on any device. I think in the Stonyhurst context, we also need to consider how, to coin a phrase, lossy the old physical system was. And you only had to walk down a corridor to see that there would be a couple of folders there that should probably be in a lesson with somebody. That can't really happen with OneNote. If they've got their work in OneNote and they've got their laptop and their laptop is working, then they've got their folder. And if their laptop isn't working, it can be fixed and they have their folder again. Whereas I certainly got the impression a few years ago that not every folder made it with every pupil to every lesson. They possibly had their work with them, but then it wasn't in the folder. So it's an organisation thing as much as anything else. But these things are also true. You can type or write on OneNote. When we go to the multimodality bullet point and it says add images, of course that image could be of something that has been handwritten on paper. This is not a paperless system. We are not a paperless school, but we are a digital school. And it is very advantageous, I would suggest, to store even stuff that's been done on paper digitally. So when a pupil has taken an exam paper, it can be scanned in, and that can go in their OneNote, even before you mark it, if you prefer to do it like that. The pupil can do it, you could do it. It's relatively quick using Office Lens, which we had a brief mention of last week. There's also collaboration, the old kinds of exercises where people would get a massive piece of card and get pupils to write on it in various configurations. Of course, carry on doing that if that's a way to get pupils to talk to each other and collaborate, but then you can take a picture of it at the end and everybody has a copy, rather than it just being up on the wall in the classroom where the children aren't most of the time. But it also enables collaboration with people who aren't physically in the same room as each other, and using the collaboration space as over a longer period of time to put ideas or logs of activity in is also a possible way forward. Also under multimodality, you can embed audio, video, forms and files. Now, embedding audio is obviously really useful for me as a music teacher, but I think it goes further than that, in that actually that means if you want to say something to a pupil as feedback, you just press record. But you just press insert audio, and it starts recording. Then you press stop, and it's there, and the pupil can listen to what you're saying. And one of the things I would say about forms is if you can embed a form on a OneNote page, but if you do that and you distribute the form, sorry, you distribute the page as part of an assignment, you don't get the forms results separately. The best way to use forms quizzes is to set them as a separate assignment rather than distributing them on a page in OneNote. So forms are better to use separately, but you can put them in OneNote if that suits. So at this point in the live version of this this sort of 45-minute session, we move on to a discussion in groups, largely of departmental groups, because people do tend to come in pairs, but some in interdepartmental groups as well. And the fundamental question is, when you're setting up at the beginning of a year and you've decided you're going to use class notebook and Teams instead of physical folders, or perhaps as well as an exercise book, or however you're doing it, you need to know how to set it up. Now, again, it's helpful to think of the analogy of a physical folder in terms of organization here. So at this point we would break and we would have a discussion. Perhaps you could take this to your own department, or you could make some notes now. But what I'll do for those of you who are watching online is I'll talk through what the class notebook for the Microsoft course, the Stonyhurst Microsoft course, looks like. So you'll see up here on the left hand side, these are the tabs, and each of these 6 tabs represents a topic. And because this is a 6-topic course being delivered in 4 sessions, I can have each topic having its own tab, and then there are some pages contained within that. It might be that for a full year, each of these might be a half term's worth of work, or a unit of 7 or 8 weeks, or whatever, however you're organising it. Then each of these numbers is a lesson. For music, for A level, I have a folder for each set work and some other folders for different topics. And within each set work, because we have small cohorts, it's not set up by lessons, it's set up by the different activities, almost as if it were an interactive textbook. And I mean, some of those can have 30 or 40 pages in. And then the way that links through to Teams is that when you are setting your assignments for your studies, or if you're using assignments for classwork as well, which you can, you're very welcome to, you share that OneNote page, you attach it to the assignment. So the pupils get it in the right place, and instead of distributing it in OneNote, you attach it to the assignment, and then that distributes it for you. Which means you can delay the distribution to whatever time you want to do it at, because that's how the assignment works. So in this case, I've got sheet 9 and 10, and then 11T. The T is just there to remind me not to distribute that page, T for task. They then do this task by finding the assignment, clicking on the OneNote page there, and it takes them straight to it. And then when they hand it in, I mark it by going into Teams rather than OneNote. And that means that I can just flick through the different pupils' submissions rather than having to go into their OneNote folders to find it. So it's just there, it's much easier to do. And then you start looking at what that looks like for a pupil when they've got lots and lots of work coming in. And if you wander around grammar, boys, on a Monday night, as I do in the Moore Library, they can easily have, even on a Monday, 7 or 8 active tasks, plus a few that purport to be active but are actually old tasks that haven't been ticked off by them or the teacher yet. And so it's important to kind of make sure they know what it is from the title. You can see here that the pupils don't see the explanation. If your title is, let's say, Biology Studies, May 2023, it's not going to help them know what it is and whether they've done it and they can tick it off or what have you. So I have tended to write the word classwork or the word studies before it, simply so they know what they're looking for. And I do the same thing if it's a cover lesson, work for cover lesson. Then they immediately find it and see it in amongst all of the other things that are there, because they're actually very busy. There's a lot for them to look at on Teams. So just to summarise what I've just said there, before you go and think about how your department might work with this, each class needs to have a folder, and you denote the folder in tabs. That's how you get the scheme of work mapped on to what's in the folder, exactly as you would physically. I strongly advise against using section groups. Several of the syncing issues we've had are to do with that. So at the minute I would say don't do that. But you can see how you have the 6 tabs for your 6 topics. Within that you have numbered pages. And then if you want to tell somebody where to find a sheet, it's tab 2B, sheet 4, for example. Distribute those through class notebook if they're not a task. Distribute them through Teams if they are a task, there's something you want them to do, and because that will increase the number of tasks that you're setting for them on assignments, make sure you're very clear in your labeling of what they actually are. So after that discussion, the next thing to do is to write what your next steps are. What are you going to do next week in order to begin implementing this, or to begin experimenting in how to implement that? If you could perhaps pause the video for 2 or 3 minutes and write a list in section 2A, sheet 2. And that's it for the first half of the session. It's a separate Microsoft course, so for this double session there are actually 2 separate achievement codes. Here is the first there, it's J6P4RG. Last time in the first video I used an earlier Microsoft slide which didn't tell you the correct place to go. So this is where you have to go. You have to go to learnmicrosoft.com, you sign in, you click on your initials at the top here, then click on Profile, then click on Achievements, and then on Redeem Your Code Now. Put in the achievement code, then when you click back on Activity, you should be able to see that you have successfully completed this course. So well done for doing that. Thank you very much for listening and thinking about this. If you're up for it, the second half of this session is the next video, which is on PowerPoint Recorder and using it for flipped learning.